and welcome to Creator Talks. Woo! Creator Talks is our live sessions on YouTube where we talk about all things content creation, and we have an amazing session coming up. In this session, we're going to dive into the world of creativity and content creation and get inspired and figure out how you can find your unique voice and how to produce content that truly resonates with your audience. So make sure to stick around for the whole talk because we have a live performance at the end, which is going to be amazing. For those of you who don't know, Epidemic Sound enables content creators to elevate their content with music and sound while empowering artists to make a living through music, which makes this panel amazing because we have both content creators and musicians. And joining me today at the Epidemic headquarters, we have our Epidemic Sound artist, Rebecca Mardal, woo woo, and YouTubers and ambassadors, Kariza, Santos, and Colt, Kirwan. So happy to have all of you here, and I thought we could just kick it off. Have each of you tell us a little bit about yourself, and Rebecca, I'll let you kick it off.
Hello, my name's Rebecca. I'm a guitarist first and foremost, and a songwriter and a producer here at Epidemic Sound.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm Kariza. I run a channel called Life of Riza, and I make cinematic vlogs about my life.
And I'm Colt. I'm a YouTuber based in New York City, and I make videos about my life with a little nostalgic twist of creativity.
I love it. You guys are amazing and strong creative voices in the industry, and I'm so excited to dig into it more. And I thought we could kick it off by just talking about kind of your journey to success, how you got here and your background. And Cole, I'm going to start with you because you've always said that it was your dream to become a big YouTuber. Yeah. And like, where did that desire come from? How did you get into content creation and become a YouTuber sitting here today?
Yeah. I feel like similar to like your first memory, around like 3, you kind of just like gain consciousness. And back in like 2016, I was watching a lot of Casey Neistat's daily vlogs. Like the whole world was watching. And one day, just woke up. I'm like, whoa. This is so cool.
This could be me.
This could be me.
Yeah.
And just kind of built the confidence to finally start making videos, really bad videos. And it's just been one step in front of the other for the past like 6 years until this year kind of hit it big. So
it's amazing.
Yeah.
And Kariza, for you, I feel like you have a really crazy background and a crazy growth story. In early this year, you grew from 10,000 to 100,000 subscribers in a couple weeks, and then to almost 400,000 or hitting 400,000. What do you think like made your channel explode, and how did you like keep on keeping on until like that explosion happened?
I think it's the concept of building your own gold mine.
Yeah.
I had videos that I put in a lot of effort into, but they were not getting a lot of views at the time. I think I had maybe around 10 to 15 videos that were like, okay, like this is like good quality, but they're just not getting discovered. And then it really only took one video to light everything else on fire. Yeah. So I think that is what really was the thing that made my channel grow fast in those initial weeks, is because once one video was discovered, then people had this whole bank of videos to get more invested in and attach themselves to, versus like if I only had 1 or 2 videos, they wouldn't really have too much to go on. So that's like
super
the key.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love that. And what about you, Rebecca? How did you get into music? What inspired you to start?
Oh, wow. I think it was same as with Colt. You just know. But for me, it was Green Day's Bullet in a Bible, live DVD from Milton Keys.
Yes.
I was like, that's what I want to do. So I got a guitar, and here we are.
I love that. That's amazing. So cool to hear like the overlap in stories of how you kind of came into your own. I think also a lot of creators who are starting out haven't found like their creative voice in whatever that is, in music and content. And it feels like the 3 of you have really found that, or maybe it's ever evolving. I don't know, but want to kind of dive into how you came to find your own style and your creative voice. And I want to start with you, Kariza. I feel like anyone who's watched your videos knows that they're like dreamy and magical and so just beautiful to watch. And how did you like kind of come into that style, like your background with film school or being self-taught, and like how did you land in like that dreamy, magical, beautiful style?
Well, I never went to film school, and most of what I learned was YouTube University, trying my best to find things like that would help me achieve the certain look that I always wanted to like emulate in my videos. And I think it started out with just finding references that I was like, okay, like this and this feels like something I would want to create. And then building off of that, having several references, and then breaking down, say if it's like a video from a creator I really admire, and I would study and break down like what they did, how do they do their storytelling, and then for the visual aspect as well, like how do I achieve this? And I think a lot of just like research on my own led me to that. And then a couple of instances like going on set and trying to learn from people who are like way better than I am.
Yeah.
All of those things came together.
I love that.
Yeah.
And like you were talking about in your bank of videos, do you feel like it got like dreamier and more magical as you landed into the style? Or was that always like what you were aspiring to sort of evoke in your videos?
I think like I've always wanted to aspire to get that kind of style. That's like naturally what I was like
drawn to.
Yeah. And so that's always kind of been a prominent thing. And then you just sort of see the style like evolve over my old videos to more recent.
I love that. Yeah. That's cool. And for you, Colt, I feel like you also have a super unique style that's like a bit nostalgic, playful, humoristic. I feel like if anyone has seen your Halloween Mario video, it's like you feel like you know you and that amazing style. How did you come up with that? And with like props and just like kind of that whole creative style that you've landed in on YouTube?
I feel like I'm just like a big kid, you know?
Yeah.
Never really grew up, and it wasn't until maybe like 6 months ago where I started kind of leaning into the nostalgic elements of things and kind of taking inspiration from my childhood.
Yeah.
And I'd say a lot of my audience is like around the same age as me, so they can relate to like those little Easter eggs of like where it came from. Yeah. And it's just been playing off of that, and that's kind of like when I started to really find my voice and style.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. And I think diving into your creative voice, you have a really interesting background in music. You've been in a punk band, you've played metal, you worked with a hip hop label, and now like you describe your music as like chill music for stressed minds. How has that been? Like having a creative voice in all these seasons, landing where you are now, like what's the story?
I think my take on music, creating music, is always in the now.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's not being honest. So when I was a teenager, I was pissed all the time, as you are as a teenager, so I played punk.
Yeah.
But now, when I started making lo-fi music and meditative sort of guitar stuff, that was me coming out from a bad mental rut, so I needed that type of music. So it's always, I think, the most honest is being in the now. What am I feeling right now? That's where the honest music is coming from. Like later, I'm going to play something that's going to be all improvised, and that's going to be all, that's going to be honest. It's going to be in the now. That's where the music happens. So that's, music evolves with you as a musician, I think.
I love that.
At least.
For each of you, like if you just had to pick one person that has sort of inspired your creative voice, whether that was like Green Day for you at the beginning or whatever, like who is a creative voice that inspired you to come into that style?
I'm gonna say YouTube as a whole. Yeah, because I think we talked about this the other day. Like my generation now, when we pick up a guitar, I went on YouTube. Watched, YouTube, other kids like me playing guitar and learning from them. It was never like Jimi Hendrix.
No, totally.
It was YouTube. So
I love that.
I'm just gonna say YouTube.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, same for me. YouTube, like especially like Casey and I say, I think we can all agree, like he's such a big influence, and other creators on the platform like that.
I love that.
I have like a handful. I'd say like Casey Neistat, obviously the reason why I started, and there's a guy Gawk's Art. Don't know how he does it, but he does it.
Beautiful stuff.
Insane cinematography, and there's also a creator Jordan Studdard who he does a lot of tinkering and building with his hands and stuff, and I've tried to take a fraction of that. So
I love that. That's so cool. If we kind of just move from your creative voice to then you found the creative voice, but you have to keep slugging on. And like sometimes the creative journeys have a lot of ups and also a lot of downs, and kind of overcoming self-doubt and creative blocks is like something that you have to do to be in this industry, whether you're on the music side or video side. And I think for you, Kariza, a lot of your videos are also talking about like overcoming creative blocks or finding inspiration in the ordinary days. What would be your advice to someone just starting, and how you can sort of endure both the ups and the downs of being a creator?
I think it's like building off of what Rebecca said earlier, like the best stories are like the ones that are super relevant to you in the moment, and it's always going to be easy to talk about things that are very relevant to you at the moment. So I kind of start with that, and if I had advice for people starting out and trying to look for ways on how to tackle that, I would say to not be too concerned with external influences. We live in the social media era, so then everything is like, okay, well, what is this person doing? And how, like, okay, that worked for them. Maybe I should do that too. And being way too caught up in that and not really listening to your intuition, like what you actually like and what you're naturally drawn to. Because I think if you sit down and not really think about the algorithm and what's working on YouTube, then that's how you kind of find your true story.
I love that. And on the music side for you, Rebecca, like how is it with overcoming creative blocks? And is there time where you feel more inspired to make music or less inspired? And like, how do you kind of push through the creative block?
Definitely. It's hard as well now that I think we all do it as a living to actually force yourself to sit down and be creative now. But I think you just got to practice. If you practice being creative at a certain point, it's going to happen. But also looking at other people who inspire you. That always gets me inspired and going as well. If I have a bad day, I don't want to sit down. I don't want to make music. I don't want to work. Just put something on that inspires you, like a guitarist or what have you. Because that's the beauty with what we do. You're never done. There's always
something to
more
create.
to learn. You're never done. There's always things to learn and be creative with.
I love that. That makes me think of something for you as well, Colt. Like in thinking about like other people who inspire you or are creative or learning from other people, you've been working a lot with Kelly Wakasa, another YouTuber, and that's like you've been helping him shoot and been a part of his journey. Like, do you feel like there's ways that in working with other people you can sort of fuel your own creativity, or how do you balance the two?
Yeah, a lot of people ask, like, what are my hobbies outside of YouTube? And it's just, like,
More YouTube.
But it's cool because you, I guess, can suffer burning out if you're always grinding on your own stuff. And it is I find myself in a very unique position to where my work for Kelly, I say quotations because we're just hanging out most of the time, but it is kind of like a symbiotic relationship to where I'm working for him, but it is also like practice for me and everything that I try and learn and test out, I can then take that to my channel as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's super cool. And kind of just keeping on this conversation about like blocks and pitfalls and challenges, I think one thing that we've all kind of talked about is like comparison and how you can, it's like the saying, comparison is the thief of joy. And it's like, whether it's music or YouTube or whatever, there's always 1 million other people making content and putting themselves out there. Like, how do you balance being true to yourself versus making things that you think other people would enjoy, or looking at the numbers? That's kind of a question for all of you. Maybe Colt, you can start us off, but I think that's a real like kind of pitfall to avoid in going into an industry that is creative and not wrapping up all of your worth in the numbers or in the algorithm.
I feel like as time goes on, people or younger generations, their dream job is to be a YouTuber.
Totally.
And I would say, like, I used to think it's cold turkey. You have to drop everything to do full-time YouTube, but I still work for Kelly, and his salary allows me to kind of take more risks on my channel and kind of keep it as something that is more of for passion rather than having to play to the algorithm all the time. And honestly, just like staying true to yourself and keeping it fun, I think is very powerful, because you find that you put in so much effort on these videos that are supposed to do well, and then they end up not doing as well as you had hoped sometimes. So
yeah, that's so true. Do you feel like for you, are you looking at the numbers a lot, and like, is that like, oh dang it, this didn't work, or this worked really well, and then you're like looking at all of the numbers? Or how do you juggle what you consider success on YouTube?
I'm almost at 100,000 subscribers, which is like, what
Amazing.
the heck? Like, that's crazy. And I never really thought I'd even get there. So even to be sitting on this stage, it's like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here, but
you are.
Oh, sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, just balancing like how you measure success. But I think you're talking about that in like being grateful where you are in the journey. Yeah.
I think YouTube for me has just been like this like constant chase, and it's like who I am. So I don't know if I'd ever like make it or whatever, but I think it's just like kind of like you said, like when you start, there's really no end to this job. You know, there's no real retiring. You just kind of keep on making videos. So I'm just gonna try to keep on making videos.
I love that. Yeah. For you, do you ever feel like in it being never ending, like, oh, what if I run out of video ideas? Or do you feel like you're always like making, but both being inspired by new things to make? It's always something new.
Yeah, I think like mentioned earlier, it's like what's relevant to you.
Yeah.
Is what I try to lean into whenever I ideate for videos. Like maybe once a quarter, I'll like sit down and brainstorm a bunch of ideas, and then I'll select the ones that are like feel like okay, like this is relevant to the season of my life right now.
Yeah.
Because those ones are always the ones that are like gonna do the best, and so I kind of start with that. And honestly, doing that, I don't really run out of the ideas because like, as long as you keep experiencing life, then you're always gonna have like the like experience to draw from.
Totally. Yeah.
And then I think it's about taking whatever you're experiencing and then how can I make that digestible for an audience?
Yeah.
So maybe not necessarily exactly the situation that something happens in, but like, okay, this is the lesson I learned from that. Yeah. How can I make that into a story?
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And Rebecca, for you on like the music side, like what do you feel like are some of the biggest like challenges or pitfalls to avoid in having a long career as a musician?
I think drawing from what we're talking about is trying to please your audience, like trying to sound like you think people want you to sound like.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing, especially working in like as I do for Epidemic, which is like really you're making music for an audience and for customers. I think that keeping your true voice, that's the biggest thing.
That's amazing. And for people who are starting out as musicians, like what's your advice to them on keeping their true voice or pushing through the challenges?
It's hard because as a creator and as anything, you have to start out by trying to replicate what other people do in order to learn. But it comes a point where you just have to say, well, maybe this isn't the proper technique. Maybe this isn't what's taught in school, but this is how I like it. Yeah. This is my voice.
Yeah.
You know. So learn from other people, be inspired by other people, but also be brave enough to say, no, that's not for me.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. That's such an amazing like point to make. And I think it's so true for anything in the creative field. It's like, how can you learn and see what's happening in the world and look at the numbers and look at the algorithm, whatever. But the biggest thing is like staying true to your own creative voice. I love that. In a second, we're going to open up for Q&A. But before, I just wanted to encourage anyone watching who is either a musician or a creator to just join in with Epidemic. We have a Epidemic Sound community program that empowers and supports and amplifies the voices of creators. And it's a loyalty program that empowers you both creatively and commercially. So if you're curious about it, you can click the link down below and join the community of Epidemic. But now we're going to open up for a Q&A. We had so many questions from people on the Discord and on social media, so excited to dive into your questions for our panelists. So I'm going to kick it off. First question around how do you find community in the creative industry, whether it's like in photography or filmmaking or music, like how do you go about that? Colt, you want to start?
I think like once you kind of find what you want to do, whether that be a niche or something, you kind of gravitate towards those type of people.
Yeah.
And also just like showing up. There's always, if you look, there's always a bunch of events that are around and you really never know who you're going to meet there.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to, you know, get outside,
yeah,
touch some grass and get outside your comfort zone to put yourself in the position to make a community. Yeah.
And I feel like being in New York, it's like you have that at your fingertips.
Spoiled.
Yeah, and there's such a cool scene in New York right now. It feels like, we've talked about this, like the renaissance of creators in New York City. So it's like you have that and that access. And then for you, you're living in like the suburbs of Toronto. So how do you approach completely opposite of New York City, but still like how do you find community?
I mean, like I think like you said, like showing up is really important. If there is an event, but also show up making your craft. I think because like a lot of people, including myself in the early days, like you want to be a creator, but like are you creating constantly? Because the more you create something, then that just like naturally will open up opportunities for you to connect with other creators who are also doing it. Yeah. Because like you need something to present yourself with, and I think like that's like something that naturally has opened up doors for me to meet people and find a community.
It's almost like a resume.
You
have your thing like, oh, I like your stuff, and then it's like that mutual bond. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah. What about on the music side?
Social media. It's going to be social media for me.
Yeah,
definitely. I started talking to a guy called Will Hatton / Hushchild on Instagram, just talking about lo-fi music. Can't remember how we started. And then we ended up releasing a track together, and that was my first track that passed 2 million streams now.
It's amazing.
And we've never met in person. It's literally just Instagram.
Yeah.
I think that's a great opportunity for creators nowadays to collaborate with other people.
I love that. Yeah, it's so cool. It's like it opens so many doors in terms of collaboration. It's amazing. Another one from the audience. How do you manage like the workflow between like editing, living life, staying present, and like that balance of creating but also living?
I mean, if there is balance, let me know, because
you're like, I'm looking for it. Where is the balance? Yeah,
I'm constantly looking for it. If I'm being honest, like, it's a lot. Like you gotta grind, and if you don't have a team and you're doing it all by yourself, like it is a lot of work.
A lot of hats to
juggle.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think a part of it is like Parkinson's law, where it'll take as long as you give it time to.
Yeah.
So I feel like I find myself just dragging on a project because there's always something more you can do.
Yeah.
But maybe like having deadlines is like the only way to really have a balance, I'd say.
No. It leads to one of the other questions as well, is like, how do you combat perfectionism? Which it's like in a career that is never finished, with a video that you could always keep working on or a song that you could always keep working on. Like, how do you draw that line, and how do you kind of juggle perfectionism?
I think it's like what you prioritize.
Yeah,
because
true.
For me now, it's like I would rather get a video out and just keep the momentum going and keep my creativity like fresh.
Yeah.
So then I try to aim for a shorter cadence.
Totally.
Whereas like you can aim for perfectionism, but maybe you're only uploading a couple of times a year.
Yeah.
So it really is your priority of like, okay, do I want to just like have this as an exercise, or like do I want like this like very polished finished product?
Yeah.
I'm learning now, because
you're like, okay.
Great points. I've got nothing to add except I'm going to try that.
I love that. It's so good. It with like the balancing of perfectionism, like how long do you feel like it typically takes to finish a song end to end, finish a video end to end, or does it depend so much on the project?
Sometimes you're in flow, I feel. Then you can finish something in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, well, it's 2 years later. Where's the music? What about you guys?
Yeah, I think if I have good pre-production, then everything is so streamlined. I can probably finish a video in like maybe 2 weeks if I'm really efficient.
Yeah.
But if not, like it's like a month at least.
Yeah.
Even the simplest videos, like, oh, this is a simple video, ends up taking like, whoa, how are we still on this video?
Yeah. It's so interesting. Another question that I think is an interesting one to talk about like putting yourself out there in your creative voice and social media in general. It's just like, have any of you ever been like teased by like creating a vlog, filming something for social media, putting yourself out there, or do you just feel cringe sometimes making it, but no one's ever called it out?
I think I've been fortunate to where when I started posting videos in high school, everyone, I mean, maybe I didn't hear the bad comments,
You're
but
like, I didn't hear my haters.
Everyone's like, oh, like, Cole, he's the YouTube guy, whatever.
Yeah.
And then now, like, my community is super positive, which is great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've always kind of just been uplifted and encouraged, which is I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, I love that. Super cool.
Yeah.
Another question that we had around sort of music, which I guess makes sense with being epidemic, is like, how do you go about your music choice and like sound design in videos and finding that style?
I mean, for me, I try to have like an overall feeling of like, okay, this is the tone of the video. Maybe I'm looking for something a bit more energetic, or okay, maybe I want to go into Motown or blues, or like this is like, but for me, it's like what's happening in the scene always has to be so relevant to that. Like the tone, setting the tone, especially from the beginning of the video, is so important. So I think I work on my very first song like the most, because that's what's going to determine the overall tone of the video.
Yeah, I like that.
It makes everything,
Yeah, it makes everything.
Yeah. I'd say going into it, like you kind of like, there are those times where you find like the perfect song and there's no better feeling than that. But like kind of like what you said, or you even have a sign in this office is like bad music makes bad videos.
Yeah,
like that.
bad music makes bad video. Yeah.
I mean, couldn't be more true.
Yeah.
Couldn't be more true.
Bad music kills good videos.
That's the sign.
Yeah, bad music kills. I was like, it's not bad music kills good bad video. I'm like, what does it say?
But it's so true. It's so true.
No, that's cool. Another question that I think is really interesting. We have so many, so I'm just picking and choosing. But what video or what song are you most proud of that you've put out into the world?
For me, it's Said and Done. Because that was one of those that was just, it took me 15 minutes to write, but it was all from like
I love
the
that.
heart to the, you know.
Yeah.
So what? Yeah. Most
Said and
meaningful.
Done. Amazing.
For me, my favorite video is like how to be the main character of your own life. I think that's what I titled it. It was like my first ever episode of a vlog, because I've never vlogged before that.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like the first time I figured out how to combine a lot of elements that I really liked into one video and make it make sense.
Yeah.
So it wasn't quite a traditional vlog. And I also incorporated more filmmaking into that as well. And so I always go back to that video. I'm always like, oh, how can I make a video as good as that one? Because it was so simple, but I loved it. Yeah.
I love that. What about you?
I love my Mario Kart video.
Yeah, it's so good.
I think it was the first time that I felt like a stereotypical YouTuber pranking the public, blah, blah, blah. But I really love the camaraderie in that video.
Yeah.
Because it started with me just buying a go-kart and I was going to dress up as Mario.
Yeah.
Then my roommate was like, that's cool. He
I'm
bought
doing
one. Then we peer pressured our other roommate to buy a third one. And then Kariza's like, I'll fly out and be Princess Peach. And then it kind of just became this like whole teamwork thing. And like everybody kind of showed support for it. And it was just for my video. So
Yeah, and it was like classic New York City.
Yeah,
you know?
it's so classic New York City. One of the questions that someone asked is, do you feel awkward when shooting like B-roll or content like just out in the world? And
So
do you feel
awkward.
like, but then you're like, if there's 4 of you dressed up, then you just like taking on New York.
divides the awkwardness.
Yeah. I love that. How do you balance that and like talking to the camera while other people are watching, or like, does it get easier?
Yeah, I think kind of similar to what you were saying, practice makes perfect, or you just got to practice. I believe you kind of become more of what you do, you know?
Yeah.
If I tried to do a TED Talk right now, I'd probably be terrible. But by the 15th TED Talk, I'd be pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
So it is just kind of like practicing and the repetitions.
Yeah, I love that. Another one about kind of starting out, like in terms of both like gear, like cameras or music gear, and like learning the fundamentals. How did you like start? Like, okay, I want to make videos. Oh, I want to record music. Like, first people starting out, what would be like the place that they should go to start?
Well, I think I think especially for YouTube, like I had the visual aspect. Like I knew kind of how to film already going into YouTube, but what I lacked was skills in storytelling. And so like I started there. I wanted to know how to structure a video, how to tell a story effectively, how to like make it resonate with an audience. And those are like skills like I did not have in the beginning for sure. And filming was like the easy part. So then I think it depends on what you want to do, but I think for me specifically, like I started there.
Yeah. I love that. What about for music?
I think I'm gonna stick with the idea that good gear does not make you a good musician, because a
Yeah.
lot of, especially in the guitar community, there's that gear. Probably in the
absolutely,
gear
100%.
It's like this
Yeah.
guitar is gonna make me some. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's all in here. So get a decent, guitar, and get some free DAWs online, and just get good at your decent gear.
Yeah.
And then you can start
Yeah, I love
shredding.
that. Do you feel like for you guys with like you're talking about with gear and filming, are you filming stuff on your phone as well? And like, how can you make that cinematic? Or are you more like camera people?
I love gear.
Yeah,
Kind of contradicts everything you guys are just saying, but
you're like, I love the gear. It's so fun.
it's so. I mean, it is so fun. Like
Yeah.
I just go to B&H for fun, and I have to buy something every time I go in there.
Yeah.
But I'd say if you are limited to just your phone, like the fundamentals of other things tell good stories, you know?
Yeah, totally.
So with storytelling, I'd say
Yeah.
arguably that is the most important.
Yeah.
It could be Shaw on a potato, but you could be crying. Like that's a great story, you know?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of other things to look at before
Yeah.
you do that. So I think you could start with anything.
And I think
love
also
that.
it's like you need to be bursting at the seams before you should be concerned with upgrading your gear.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so expensive to buy gear all the time.
Yeah.
And I think you need to like feel like you're outgrowing like the stuff that you have before even like moving on to the next upgrade. Yeah.
I used to think that way about guitars. Like I can't buy a new guitar until I'm worthy, until I'm good enough for that new expensive gear.
Yeah. No, it's so cool. And I think it's like for new creators starting out, like the barrier is so low. Like you can get a free DAW or you can use your phone or whatever. And it's like, then it's really just about like, who are you? What's your creative voice? And how do you want to tell stories through your art? And like, that's the part to focus on at the beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have one more question for all of you, just kind of about like the future and what you would want to be doing in the next 5 years, 10 years, and if that would be like any kind of dream project.
Okay,
It's a big
we're
one.
starting out here with
It's a
big
big one
questions.
from the audience.
Well, I want to be happy and I want to play my guitar.
I love it.
And we'll see what that means for me in 5 years.
Yeah. So good.
I mean, I hope I'm still doing YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, I waited a long time to even get here. So,
Yeah.
I think like continuing YouTube, making videos, maybe even having like a product or of some kind. Like that would be
that's
really cool. But yeah, I just want to keep making videos.
I love it.
And similar to before, like I kind of never thought I could even become a YouTuber, and the fact that it's even happening, like, ooh, I did not plan for this to happen, you know? So I never even looked past that. So I would love to just continue to be a YouTuber.
I love that.
There is one project.
Yeah.
I spent like $200 on this like Chef Boyardee can, trying to get it to roll by itself. So I want to recreate that commercial. So
I love that.
within 5 years, hopefully that comes out. So
Yeah. You're like, I got a lot of time. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
That's so fun. Thank you so much. This has been really interesting and so cool to hear how like such different stories have so much like overlap in the things that are good and bad and hard and all of it. And to round off Creator Talks in the very best way, Rebecca is going to play, which I'm so excited. So take it away.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We'll just do some quick setups here.
It's going to be amazing.
Whoa.
Oh, and the lights, guys. Just professional here at Epidemic.
Another thing about creativity, you guys,
Tell us, Rebecca.
that I shall tell you of now. I think it's a good thing to push yourself to try new things. So stupidly, I decided to try Ableton for the first time for this. So we'll see how it goes.
I love it. Always learning new things.
Always learning new things. Let's start off with a nice little pad.
So good. Thank you so much to Rebecca and Kariza and Colt for such an amazing session, and for everyone watching online. Have a good one, and thanks for joining Creator Talks.